To get started, let's go ahead and talk about the key skill sets that you should consider as you gear up for a transition into product management. And so I'd like to share 3 different frameworks with you just to kind of give you a well-rounded view of what might help you to succeed the most. So first off, I want to cover table stakes. What are the absolute minimum requirements you have to bring to the table to be considered as a product manager? Then I'd like to talk about filling the white space, which I lightly touched on, and kind of what that looks like and what that framework entails. And then being T-shaped, which is basically looking at how your skills are distributed and then using that to create a competitive advantage. And so you'll notice that within these 3 frameworks, as we continue to talk about them, that your current role, whatever it is that you're doing, can already fit very nicely within all 3 of these frameworks. And so regardless of whether you realize it or not, you have already been preparing to become a product manager. So let's go ahead and talk through these. So first off, what are table stakes? Table stakes means that you absolutely have to have these things. And the way that I see it is that really the core 3 things that every product manager needs to have is the ability to communicate, to prioritize, and to empathize. And there's a reason why I listed them in this order. First off, there are a lot of folks who will tell you, hey, prioritization is the most important thing. But the way that I see it is if you can't communicate your priorities, if you can't understand what the other person is saying and then be able to relay that back to them, it doesn't really matter how great your priorities are because you can't communicate them out and enable others to act on them. So really what I see as the most important thing as a product manager is the ability to communicate. Then after that is prioritization. So the thing is, as a product manager, you have hundreds, if not thousands of daily problems, daily decisions that you have to make on an ongoing basis. And the thing is, some decisions matter a lot more than others. Sometimes a decision of, what color should this font be is maybe not as impactful as who is the customer segment that we want to serve. And so it's really critical for you to prioritize the problems that you're tackling and prioritize the decisions that you're going to make. Because let's face it, there's only so much time in a day. You're not going to be able to make all of the decisions that people hand off to you. And then the last part is empathy. Really being able to resonate very deeply with your user and your customer, but also being able to resonate deeply with your fellow stakeholders, with everyone else who works with you within your organization. Empathy is what really enables you to collaborate with other people. And, you want to be able to feel their pain at the same level that they do so that you can represent them well in coming to an informed decision. And so really, these are the core 3 things that every product manager, in my view, absolutely has to have. And you'll notice that these are all soft skills. Nowhere in here did I say that you have to code or have to do analytics or have to do any particular technical thing. I didn't say that you had to come up with business models. All of those are certainly nice to have, but they're not must have. Must have, you absolutely must be able to communicate, prioritize, and empathize. So, really don't underestimate the soft skills. Everything that you do, every interaction that you have from this day forward, really think about how they fit into these 3 table stakes if you're really serious about transitioning into product management. The next framework that I'd like to talk about is filling the white space. So in a world without product managers, there are 3 general audiences to think about. First off, they're the users. They have all of the different pains that they're trying to solve, but they don't really know what they can do to make it better. Then you have the business. The business is looking to create a sustainable business model, be able to keep lots of people employed productively and be able to sustain themselves into the long-term future. And then you have the developers, and we can consider developers as design, QA, data, engineering, everyone who would go into actually executing on a product. They all want to do something that's really awesome, that's really exciting, but they may not necessarily know, hey, what's going to be the most impactful? And so you'll see here in this diagram that the product sits in the center of all 3 of them. A really viable product solves the needs of the users and really fulfills, the development team's dreams to create something really impactful, and also provides a sustainable business model so that the business can continue to provide value to the users and the developers. And so the product manager sits in between all 3 of these audiences and really enables them to coordinate and communicate. And then lastly, let's talk about being T-shaped. So we can go ahead and think about skills as, a set of bar charts, let's say. So, down on the x-axis there, you can see there are all these different skills that a person might have. And then on the y-axis, let's call them mastery points ranging from 0 to 100, right? So just in terms of whatever your skill set is today, consider drawing out what are all of the skills that you have, what are the skills you don't have, and how much mastery you feel you have over them. And when we talk about being T-shaped, what we mean is that you really want to spike heavily in at least one set of skills. So here on skill D, you see that really deep spike in mastery, but you also see that across a base, all of these different skills meet some minimum threshold. So being T-shaped is incredibly important as a product manager for a couple of reasons. First off, again, because you're filling the white space, you're tackling all these different problems, you want to have a multidisciplinary set of tools at your disposal. You want to be able to tackle a lot of different things at once. And so being, minimally competent in a lot of different ways is incredibly important. That forms the base of your T here. But if you're a jack of all trades and you're just a generalist, you're not necessarily providing unique value or unique perspectives on problems. And so that's why you really want to spike hard on one area. And so to make this a little bit more concrete, a product manager might have, many different skills that they have to master, pulling together business models, financials, forecasting, writing notes, conducting user research, working with engineering to, figure out bugs, triaging. There are all these different skills that they might be good at or might need to have. For me specifically, while I have all of these minimum skill sets that I have, where I particularly spike is documentation. And that sounds a little bit weird, like, hey, this product manager is saying he's really good at taking notes. Why is that important? Well, the thing is, you actually use the spike in your T to then bring up the levels of all of the other skills within your skill inventory. So because I'm incredibly good at taking notes, that means that I can, communicate very clearly with my users and with my executive teams and with my stakeholders. And so that means that I get brought into a lot more of these meetings and, can have these very deep discussions with people and can keep track of all of the things that have happened before. That ability to take really great notes and to be able to convert those into documentation has then enabled me to build really robust specs, be able to dive really deep into problems and document them for any, future interactions. And then that has then allowed me to work very deeply in design and to be able to create, really pleasant, thoughtful experiences for my users, right? And you can kind of see how when you're good at one skill, you can use that skill as a crutch to enable you to be even better at the other skills within your inventory. And so that's why being T-shaped is incredibly important. So as we continue talking through, this session, think about what your spike in your T is. What's the thing that you're really incredible at? Embrace that. Don't feel like, oh, I have to be like everyone else. I have to be able to do this one particular thing. No, you have some special spike that you have, and embrace that and use that as your differentiating factor to bring all of your other skills up to the next level. One of the questions that I always get is, how technical do I need to be as a product manager? And the thing is, I would actually say that that's a trick question. The thing is, being technical, a lot of times people are very intimidated of, working with engineers because, oh, the engineers know all of this stuff, right? But really, that's not the core point. The core point is you need to be able to communicate with them and be able to understand, hey, what are the problems that they're facing? What are the trade-offs they're trying to make? And how can you provide net new guidance, net new value that they don't already have? Because the thing is, imagine that you were the most technical person on the planet. Well, you'd be an engineer then, and that wouldn't be a product manager, right? Like they're hiring a product manager because they want a product manager, not an engineer. And so really it's all about, for that role, right? Like how can you provide the most value? And a lot of times providing value means understanding the engineers, but not necessarily needing to know how to code. You see that within my background. I don't have any, coding experience myself, but I've been a platform product manager before. I've been able to design architecture alongside my engineers because I was able to keep digging and digging and digging into the problem and really understanding the mental model. What are the different trade-offs we're making? How do we make all of these different things fit together? So again, it's not necessarily how technical are you, it's how well can you communicate with people who are technical. And I think that's a very nuanced and different perspective that you should, highly consider.